All right. I'll call our meeting to order. Would you all stand, please, and join us as we honor America and our veterans with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. First order of business is public comment. And we're losing our public quickly. Kim, no? Okay. I'll go right on to item 3A, which is the approval of minutes. We have several. First one is approval of the October 6th public hearing minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections on, pardon me, those sets of minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the minutes of the public hearing of October 6th, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3B, which is adopting of the regular selectmen's meeting, which was also held on October 6th, 2016. Someone move?
So moved.
Second. And comments, corrections, or additions?
I wanted to say, oh, and Sarah's here, good. I just wanted to compliment Sarah on the job that she did on the description of the discussion on the trail. I thought you captured the comments very well, and in the future, it'll be really great for somebody to look back and see how that conversation went. And so, yeah, very nice job on that.
Hearing no other comments, all in favor of adoption of the minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item C, which is adoption of the October 14th special meeting. Someone move those.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All right. Any additions or corrections on those sets of minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the minutes as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And excuse me. Next one is 3D, which is adoption of the minutes of the informational meeting, which is held on October 27, 2015.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Additions, corrections, or comments?
There is a typographical error in the 5th paragraph, the paragraph that begins Mr. Galeota. It's the second to last sentence. The word 5 should be fire apparatus.
Yes. On paragraph?
5th paragraph, second to last sentence.
Yes.
The typical
Oh,
lifespan.
yeah, okay.
Yes.
So noted. So the maker of the motion will make that as a correction in the second?
Right, I approved the correction.
Okay, in the second.
Okay.
Okay, so move. So the motion is to approve the minutes as corrected. Please indicate, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And next one is the minutes of the special meeting of October 28th.
So moved.
There, a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any additions, corrections, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting those minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. Correspondence, none. Unfinished business, none. Two things. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to recognize that this is the Bob on the right's last meeting as a member of this board. And as Bob and I had a This Is Your Life event on the public access, and had a chance to really talk about his history in service to the community, and especially to this board. And one of the points I made was Bob's steady hand was always the force that I think that kept this board and previous boards melded together and moving forward. And I personally, I think on behalf of the board, wanted to thank you for all you've done for this board and for our community, and we've actually have if you would come on up here. I know you've received so many accolades that maybe this is getting to be old hat, but this is Sally, you want to, come on up here so Sally can take a picture.
Let me get out of the picture.
And it reads, Robert Lassard, in appreciation of your service to the citizens of Board of Selectmen 2008-2015, and as Deputy First Selectman 2013 and 2015. There you are, sir. And thank you very much. And I'm sure the rest of the board agrees that we're going to miss you. And we also have a little something for all the grief and aggravation that your wife went through. This is a treat to make up for about 1/100th of that. Thank you so much for all you've done. Also would like, if, with the board's indulgence, we have an item on here, which is down on, it's item 8D, discussion on a propane tax, which Pat is here for, and rather have her to sit through the end. If the board would mind, we bring it up to the front.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to move item 8D to the, right after unfinished business. Unless we have, or right after correspondence, or right after.
It's after unfinished business, that's where we are.
Okay.
That's good.
All right.
Sandy
I'll
seconded
second.
it?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Pat will give you the floor, since you're here to, well, you can, relax.
Well, he does, though. Oh, he does.
Yeah, it's not you. It's just, it records better. You stay right there and just hand it to her. And she has a hand, oh, y'all have the handout. Thank you.
I just, I'm here tonight to ask for this board's help in having this unfair propane tax repealed. It has been in the works for 20 years, but the thing is, it has never been enforced. So now I believe it is a money grab, since the state is in such bad shape. But I think it's very unfair to small towns like ours, and because when we lose power, we have no water, no sewers, which we don't have anyway, but we have no sanitary facilities, and also we need more services from the town if we don't have the generators. We've been encouraged to have generators so as we can be more independent, take some of the burden off our town officials, because they do have a lot to worry about and try to keep everyone safe. So by having our own generators, and we can take care of ourselves. And also, we have people in town that don't have generators, and they need help, so the services should be saved for them. But the state is very unfair, because supposedly you don't pay tax when it's for heating. This is sustaining life when you live out here. We have nothing when we're out here, and we do need to have generators. So I think it's an unfair burden on small towns. The larger grids get back on, and you can understand why, because when they get on, they get a bigger bang for their buck, because it's helping more people. And so we understand that. We're not complaining that our town isn't on until mostly the last ones that get their energy back. So I think that this discriminates against the small towns. So I do feel that we should call our legislators, which I have already called some. I have put it on Facebook. I have brought it to the attention of our first selectman, and he has said he would carry the ball, and I do want the townspeople to be aware, and I'm hoping that everyone will get the word out. It is on Facebook, and I have been calling legislators from different parts of the state, so I am trying to get the word out and let them know how we feel, and I think the squeaky wheel gets oiled, and I think we ought to squeak a lot. So if anybody has any questions, I do also, I gave you a paper on it, but I do have something that I would like perhaps our attorney on the board to look at, some other papers that you could look at for the use tax and so forth. I don't need to read it all at this thing, but I thought that you could work on this and see what you could do as well. So if anyone has any questions.
I just have a couple of comments to sort of to kind of back up what you're saying a little further. When you look at what the impact is, a typical example, if you have a home that uses propane for cooking and also heating, and then they decided to install a generator, the generator probably uses a tenth of the fuel, the rest because it rarely runs. But when you buy the fuel, because you have the generator, you're being taxed.
On the entire thing?
On the entire
8.1%.
purchase. Correct. So,
8.8%.
It's
Yeah.
8,
Yeah.
it said
I mean,
on the
it's
closer to
paperwork.
9.
it's
Yeah.
close to 9% tax. And that's one aspect of it. The other one that you had mentioned at the senior center that really struck home is you have a number of, throughout the state, I mean, there are seniors or just regular folks who have issues that require oxygen makers and other supportive apparatus that need electricity to run. And they have generators to do that. So this is a for them, it's a life-saving issue. And they're being taxed for that, whether they're being taxed. So, I mean, it is one of the most unfair taxes they could possibly think of. And I frankly, I think you would have, I'm not speaking entirely for the board, but I perceive that you'll have unanimous support from this board. And, I was going to recommend that we, as a board, vote to recommend to the state that they rescind this unfair tax and list these reasons why. I mean, they're life safety issues, as you pointed out. And that, to me, that starts at the top and then works down from there.
I can attest to that because my husband had a wound vac, and we couldn't have used it without power. And that was the reason we first installed a standby generator.
Yep.
And I'm sure there are many, many homes that have the same problems.
And that's, if you look back in our history of when we got hit with the storms in a row, we were 99 to 100% out for 3 storms in a row in town. And that's a fact. And that definitely, I don't believe the Council of Small Towns is aware of this, but I will make sure that they're also aware of this because small towns are who it's going to impact the most. And I would think that you would have buy-in from the Board of Directors of the Council of Small Towns to also take on this subject.
Anybody else want to comment on it?
Pat, do you have a sense of how many people have propane systems in town?
That have the standby generators, I do not know. But more and more people are getting them because, as you know, we have nothing when the power is out. And as you know, the town was really strained for services, and you fed people up here, and took care of them. And also, we have to worry about the people that are out there, and you can't get to them because it took my sons a whole day during one storm to get into my driveway.
Right.
And they were using a backhoe and both boys shoveling. So, the fire department helps get to people when they have emergencies, But the more people that are independent, the less people you have to worry about. I know our director from the senior center went around, riding around, checking on people. She saw that I had lights in my house, and she said she knew she didn't have to stop. So these are the things that, that make your job easier. And you live here too. You know what it's like to be without. And I would hope that a letter would go out both to the governor's office and to the what did you say?
Cost.
Cost, it's cost,
Sorry.
yeah. And also to both our senator and our rep as well.
Okay, and I have notified both of them.
I know, they've told me that.
Okay, so, and I have also notified some others that I know throughout the state, and I will continue calling every day, emailing, and get the word out. If necessary, I'll start petitions, because this affects so many people, and it's just totally unfair. I would prefer that they would stop the franking privileges, because, as you know, these are things we don't really need anymore because of email, Facebook, and so forth. They're using them now to get elected. I don't want to see my representative's face in my mailbox. I prefer that money go to be used for other services. Because, as you know, when those colored flyers come out, just telling us about fairs and so forth, those things are available on the computer, in the newspapers, and I think the days of them having franking privileges should be over. Let's give them a book of stamps for snail mail for those that they cannot reach otherwise.
And there's your editorial comment for the night. All right, well, thank you, Pat, and,
Thank you very much for listening. I
no,
appreciate
that's quite
it.
all right. I think you're out there fighting a good cause.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Pat.
So, these are two things that I thought as an attorney you'd like to cover. The rest of the group, feel free to as well. I brought you each one of these, but I only made one copy.
Okay.
of these,
We
okay?
can make copies for
And
it.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
I move that we go on record as being opposed
I'll give you this one.
to the
I'll make
propane
another.
tax
Okay.
due to life safety issues in our small town, and that we provide that resolution to the governor's office, Senator Casano's office, Representative Mulligan's office, and also Senator Formica from East Lyme and Representative Carney from Old Saybrook, as well as the Board of Directors of Cost.
I'll second that
Seconded.
motion.
Motion's made and seconded. Any additional comments, questions? If not, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to item 6A, which is the Charter Oak Greenway Shared Use Path and Extension. Our committee met and reviewed the BSC draft report, and we spent some time, and Gwen and Bob and Joyce and the other members really going over, doing some, requesting some modifications, some actual corrections, and were recommended. Patrice and Joyce are working with the group to implement these modifications. And when they're done, the committee will review them one more time so that we are comfortable that the modifications are there, and then we will have a public presentation. That's Joyce and Gwen and Bob. Anything else you want to add
Yeah,
to
a couple of the types of comments that the committee made. One of them was that a lot of the term bicycle facility was used often in the report, and we wanted to make it clear that this was not just a bicycle facility, that this is a multimodal facility. It's for pedestrians as well as bicyclists. And so we didn't want the emphasis just to be on bicycle. We're trying to think in a broader sense. We talked, but we also wanted more general language focusing on transportation as a goal of the report, not just recreation, because this segment, if it is constructed, will tie in with the next-gen corridor study that's being done between Bolton and Yukon. And that's an alternative transportation and system or method. We're not just looking at more trails, and there was a comment brought up at the last meeting by some of the residents saying, now, how many trails do we really need here? We're not really thinking about this as just recreation. This has a broader implication for trying to get away from using fossil fuels for transportation and looking at alternative means of transportation. So so our comments, as well as being picky about there should be a comma here and a capital there, it was also looking at what the general tone of the report is.
Bob, anything you want to add to that?
That's basically it. One thing toward the end, I was thinking of the use of, I realize it's part of the title, but the use of trail to me connotes something, almost something completely different. And that is, I'm used to the Blue Blaze Trail and what have you. You're walking through the woods type of situation. In some respects, this is almost a path as opposed to, it's more civilized, if you want to think of it that way. It's more prepared for you than a trail. I don't think we're going to change the name trail, but I think the use of the word trail connotes a different image than I think what the actual use of the path will be. So, but, you know, we're not going, I don't think we're going to change it. It's got that in almost every single document, so.
I also am still working on, I haven't been able to get a hold of Lori Giannotti to discuss the use of the remaining funds under the grant. So
Yeah, that's an open item, so,
Yes.
yeah, we left it as open, yep.
We will be looking, hopefully, probably the end of the first or the second week in December, maybe, for informational meeting. I think you'll see something from Patrice on Thursday, trying to organize that, as well as a meeting with the Trails Committee to go through the draft plan. We have gone through a first blush of all the comments with BSC Group now, but, you know, they may come back with some questions as we went through it page by page with them.
Okay, if no other questions or comments, I'll go on to 6B, which is Lower Bolton Lake status report. As you know, we had the forum was held there. Friends of Bolton Lake held it here and was well attended. It was a very good informative program. And I think those who attended got a lot out of it. I think we all learned a lot, and we also learned that, you know, we do have an issue going on there right now that's being studied. It's a type of, I believe it's a plankton type growth that they're looking at, and they're trying to come up with what we're trying to do is come up with a plan, future plan on how to deal with should it pop up again, so we're ready to deal with. This is one we haven't seen before, at least the group that's studying the lake now. So they wanted to make sure they did a complete study and then come forward with recommendations for us as to what they are, what we should be looking for in the future, and should it happen again, we'll know how best to respond to it. I think that was, yeah, that's pretty much what we discussed there. I also noted that this winter we'll be meeting again, and George will be updating us on his findings. George Knocklin updating us on his findings at that point.
We also, since the last meeting, had approval of the lake drawdown, and that has started. And-
Just as the rain comes.
Yes. And, Kim, do you have?
Anything else you have?
some-
Kim Welch, Lake Commissioner. Thank you all for attending that meeting, the forum meeting. For those of you that did attend, it was nice to see the support of the organization and the town together supporting the lake. It is still green, as Bob mentioned, and There's interest in the meeting about the catfish already, just so you're on your toes and informed about that.
Oh, yeah.
We talked last March with the folks that are involved in that process, and the Lake Association has expressed interest in starting that up again for 2016. So I know that Joyce sent out an email regarding that and trying to get that set up. So that's further down the pipipeline. The
And that's-
drawdown
That's a
has-
meeting with the fisheries,
Yes.
right?
Yep, because they did the fish survey
Right.
the week that we did the forum, and so that spurred the thoughts of what are we going to do about the catfish? So that's in the minds of folks that are concerned about that to be coming, I'm guessing same time next year type of time frame.
I asked
it up to them.
fisheries
Yeah, which
their
is good.
schedule because they're trying to compile all the data.
Yep, that makes sense.
And they have
So
it
it's
ready. They can-
probably a December, January, depending
Okay.
on their
Yeah,
data.
that makes sense. And the drawdown has started today. Prior to the rain, it was down about 4 inches, the lower lake. So it's flowing pretty heavily out of the outlet down into the stream, headed to Ashford. And I think that's it for me. I just, again, wanted to thank you for your contribution and attendance at the meeting.
Good.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Kim.
Thank you.
And now, item 6C is consider an act on the ethics ordinance. So after quite some time, we're actually at a point of adopting the ordinance. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented at the public hearing prior to this meeting.
I'll make that motion that we adopt the ethics report as approved.
It's an ethic ordinance.
The ordinance.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Do we have any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Now, on an aside, since Mr. Lassard is retiring, I think, I hope you would consider, when we set this up, being the founding member of the board. I think Bob would be a great asset to the Ethics Commission.
Should be great. Did you ask him already, or is he
We've been
being-
hinting on it, and I'm just hoping that,
Are you putting him on the spot?
yes, we are.
Formally,
Yes, we are putting him on the spot. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yes, I'd be willing to do it.
Thank you.
Do we need
There
a
we go.
motion for this?
No.
You can't.
We can't appoint yet.
The process is now Liz will receive the minutes reflecting that the ordinance has been adopted. She has to then advertise it in the newspaper, and it becomes effective 30 days after the advertisement. After that is when you can then appoint members.
So it's down the road, but, I think Bob has been a part of the process, and your steadfast hand, I think, would be a true asset. All right, going on to item 6D, which is the FY16 budget report.
The budget report was in the packet. Currently, the town government budget is 29.69% expensed, and I can certainly answer any questions you might have.
If none, I'll go on to item, item 6D, which is capital projects. And under this one are the ones that we had approved the other night. First one to go over would be the fire truck. And Joyce and I and Chief will be sitting down to get the final clarification and final specs, and then we'll be sending them out. And on the, Sandra, I want to bring you in on this one, on the barn. One of the things we had discussed, and we had actually sent out for more information, is really looking at changing contractors to move forward on it. And I think this would be the appropriate
Right.
time, and I'll give you the floor on that one.
Yeah, I would move that we reject the bid from LaRoche Builders as the bid requirements were not met, and he was given ample time to correct the bid and has not. So.
Now that,
I need a
excuse me.
I need a
second.
second.
The second,
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
Motion's made,
Can I just make one comment?
please.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sandy, that's the estimate, it was 318,000, is that
That's the
correct?
$318,000 estimate, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we had asked for some detailed data, and we never received. Motion made, seconded, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay, motion carries.
That said, we have received a second bid for considerably less dollars from another bidder that, at this point, I don't want to make public because we have not signed the contract yet. However, Joyce and I and Sarah Nelson, our architect, held a conference call with them on Friday and requested some additional information from them, and they will have committed to supplying that by the end of the month. So I would just like the board to reaffirm that Joyce and I, when we're ready, can sign the agreement with the second bidder, if in fact they make their
Why don't you make that a
commitments.
motion that the board authorizes you and Joyce to negotiate?
Probably,
Probably should be somebody
make
else
a-
No, no.
than Joyce and I,
No.
yeah.
I make the motion that Sandy and Joyce work on the barn.
Be allowed to negotiate
To
and
negotiate
enter
and-
into a contract for, with the current bidder to
I'll second that.
fix the barn.
idea
Motion is made
again.
and seconded. Any additional comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries.
I also want to mention that our insurance adjuster was surprised and pleased that we were interested in overall costs and quality as well, so
As opposed to
just taking whatever the
taking
bid
whatever
takes.
they find. I mean, they don't, that doesn't happen with them very
I
often.
know.
And then I'm sure,
And that has reflected positively back on us, too, in trying to work with them, so.
And Sandy, for my clarification, the bid is for fire repair plus buttoning up the siding?
Yes, the the way the bid documents were written, the fire damage restoration is the base bid, and then all of the paint the entire building, the button up the remainder of the siding, and the repairs to the 20th century milk shed are all addendums and additions to the bid, so that when we get to the point of evaluating the full item, we can pick and choose based on how much we have to spend.
and each item is
It's
a
currently
separate
looking,
item.
yeah, each item is listed currently, and based on where we are today, it appears that we're going to be very able to complete all of our
Items.
proposed projects.
And when will the work start?
That's one of the items we're waiting for information on Friday. Part of the timing is dependent on the dry ice or soda blasting that has to be done to remove the char in the building, and that has to be done at a specific temperature. And nobody that was on the call on Friday could tell us what that specific temperature was, so they're going to do some additional research and get back to us. And you also need to have a specific temperature to paint as well.
Otherwise, it's not going to be worth doing it, yeah. But anyhow, that's really good, that's good news, I think. Hopefully, next month, we'll be in,
If we're very lucky, by next month, we'll be in process.
yes, very good.
It's very lucky. So
Yeah,
far,
yeah,
we've
right.
just been.
If not,
moderately-
I think we have the thing ready to roll as soon as the weather would break then. Item 6, F is consider and act upon a budget transfer. This is going from regular payroll to other contract for a finance director, since the person who we had offered the position for had a serious medical issue. He was not able to take it. So we have to go out again.
What's the process by which the interim finance director's contract is being extended? Because it was a 90-day contract. So obviously it has been extended a number of times. That was beginning in September of 2014. So what's the process by which that happens?
It's, go ahead.
No, go ahead. We're simply extending it on a month-to-month basis until we had assumed that we would have a director in place and she would be here for another 2 months to bring that person in. Obviously, we're using that criteria, she's agreed to allow us to extend until such time as we do get the director, and then up to 2 months after that to transition our director. So that's where we are. Sorry.
right.
Been light.
Kidding.
Ta-da. So, and we need someone to to approve the transfer of $24,000 from regular payroll to other contracts.
So moved.
Wait a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing
I
none.
just
Oh,
have
I'm
a
sorry.
question. Is this large enough so it has to go to the Board of Finance?
No, we only notify them. We don't have to seek their approval.
Okay.
If there are no other questions, all in favor of the transfer, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, ongoing business. Subcommittee reports. We did the barn. Personnel subcommittee met and reviewed and made recommendations to 2016, 2017 fiscal year wages for non-union personnel. That is before us here and before the board for approval to move forward so that we can use it in developing our budget for next year. I don't know if anyone has any questions on it.
Bobby, general statement is that typically it was a 2% across the board raise, except for some exceptions because of the fact that the minimum wage is increasing during this period of time. So for those positions like home help, chore workers, and library pages, they went up 3.2%. But
Right,
everybody
that-
else not everybody else.
Right,
the
not-
people that are just.
Yeah, that's a wage increase that will occur during, not the beginning, but during that fiscal year. So to meet minimum wage, we do have several areas of minimum wage. We had to increase it by 3.2% just to meet the state requirement of minimum wage.
I have a question on the board clerk. We're over 2 hours, we're paying $10 an hour in additional. Is $10 sufficient, or does it have to be the minimum?
It doesn't have to be the minimum because you're being paid 75 plus 10.
Okay.
So you're being paid 85 or 95 or
Okay, thank
hopefully
you.
not more.
For everyone's sake, thank you.
You're right. You're welcome. So is there a motion to
So, motion made.
adopt the recommendation?
Right.
Second.
Any additional comments?
Yeah, I have to agree with Gwen that it's the Board of Selectmen has foregone raises in the past, and I think in the spirit of collegiality, we ought to continue to do so.
When we discussed it, we, quite frankly, said we would leave it in there until our first round of budget discussions, and that was our first reduction. That's why it was left in there.
I think it's showing bad faith.
No, that was our reasoning for leaving it in there.
I'll just,
And I
I
know
just wanna
Gwen
well, I just
brought
wanna-
it up, she was.
yeah, I want to clarify what Sandy referred to, is when I was on the Human Resources Subcommittee, and the first comment I made is that the selectmen should not be taking a 2% raise. I mean, we've got a difficult budget season ahead of us, and I just didn't think it was appropriate. So, and I
Right.
still don't think it's appropriate.
But we did mention that this would have been the third year in a row that there has been any increases in that board's position, which I think we certainly have showed good faith in the past. Quite frankly, the amount of money that's involved it's really not the issue. I appreciate where you are, and in our discussions, just to share with everyone, I frankly said I didn't think that we would be moving. We would not be moving forward with it, because even if we had to take $400 or $500 out of a budget, that's exactly what it would be in total. So we thought perhaps it would be best to do it in the budget process rather than here and move forward with it too. That was my thinking, and I don't know, Bob or
I think that's a good idea, because in the budget, we're gonna be cutting things. And we put it in, and we can always cut it out. I mean, you're not talking thousands of dollars here. So I say leave it in, and we can cut it in budget time.
I'd have to go along with that same thought, and the fact that, although I won't be a benefit from this at all, one way or the other, I think the idea that this position is forever locked into a particular level of funding, I think is probably not a notion necessarily that you want to keep. I've said for years that when I look around and I know who our current first selectman is and the first selectman before, that particular position is well underpaid for the amount of work that has to be done. So I don't want to, the people who are volunteering for this position, I think as anybody else who's doing a job, and it is a job, not so much a volunteer at this point, I think has the expectation that at some point in time, if a job is well done, that they can have their wages increased.
I think we can honestly say there isn't a member of this board, current or past, that isn't worth 10 times what you're all being paid. I mean, you're all exceedingly underpaid. But I can't afford to give you that big raise. So, neither can, but I appreciate your positions on that, but I think I'm going to have to stay with my position. So we do have a motion to approve it as it stands, a straight 2% across the board. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
2 nays. Motion carries 3-2. Sewer project, we are now simply doing the punch list portion of it, which is hopefully in our December meeting, I will say that will be completed. And those are those aggravating things where small items seem to never end, but we're nearing there. One of the positive things are permits being pulled to tie in, continue to move at a really excellent rate. So as far as things being tied in, I think we're in excellent shape.
I have a question. I understand there's a real odor problem on Hillcrest Road. Can you update us as to what's going on there and
If the-
when they can expect some relief?
It takes a day for we contact the company to increase the flow of the bioxide into the system. By the time the system goes through, it takes about 24 to 36 hours.
Now, I understand this problem at Hillcrest Road has been ongoing, and Fuss and O'Neill has been out there several times, and there doesn't seem to be relief.
Well, it's been on and off. This is the first one we've had in I think 2 months maybe. And it's a matter of, we have more people tying in, and our flow keeps changing and changing. So we have to keep modifying the amount of bioxide that goes into the system to maintain that level. We hope that, with this final adjustment, because now you won't have, there maybe be another dozen or so systems that can be installed before the winter ceases, so you'll have this level. So between now and probably next summer, you'll have this steady level, and that should dissipate. But it's what happens, what's causing it is, if you have a slowdown or a slow flow, it starts to turn into like a septic. That's the septic smell that comes through. The bioxide, it stops that process. So if it's moving quickly, you need lesser. If it's moving slow, you need more bioxide. We have sensors. We've installed sensors in underneath the manhole covers on 2 locations, one on 44 and one near Hillcrest, so that it would pick it up. Unfortunately, when they pick it up, particularly if you get a heavy blast, that homeowner down there is the one that gets it the worst. And that's what we've been dealing with, to try and get it totally balanced. But we may still have a few adjustments to be done before it'll be totally cleared up, and this will take care of it probably through the winter months, but it may happen again in the spring of next year before we get that fully balanced.
From that homeowner's perspective, I'm not sure that that's an acceptable answer, because from what I've been told, it basically renders her home uninhabitable.
Well, and this has been our, we've moved as quickly as we can and to correct it. And she knows she has everyone's number. She said, we've said if you have the slightest bit of odor, to call us before it even gets to any type of odor where, as you say, the odor gets so bad that you really can't stand it.
And she hasn't called?
Well, until we just got a call and contact the company to increase the flow. So, I mean, when we get a call, it's generally that day we respond to it. It's not that we wait around, but it takes about a day to get it flow increased and then flow through the system.
And has that been explained to the homeowner? Because
Fuss and O'Neill, yes, has talked to, they have been the primary contact because they're still the engineers.
They're still the engineer in charge of this thing.
In charge of the project.
And we've been,
And Bolton Lakes will be assuming all of that very shortly, because we will be closing out the project.
by the first of the year. So the calls will come directly to us.
you have
We don't
at
like-
least
no,
one
I know.
extremely unhappy homeowner.
Well, I know that. And it's not this, that we, if there was a way that we could totally correct it now, we would have done it by now. I think we've done,
And
we've
that
done
was-
multiple things to try and eliminate that problem for her. I mean, it will be fully eliminated, but it may not be till middle of next year.
But that was why the sensors were even installed in trying to get ahead of it before you got the smell
So
even,
we catch it.
so that we could monitor it. And the flow is, the bioxide being added in is changed based on weekends versus weekdays, based on, mornings versus holidays. It's all based on when you think people are going to be home and using things as to how much is put in at what time. And that's contracted out. The company has a multitude of those types of agencies. But our flow, because we still have people tying in, we still don't have a handle on what our flow is at what time of day.
So that's why that's the reason why it occurred. That's not, and I wish we could totally end it. This may be the last time. I hope it is, but I can't make that promise.
So the true answer is light up your phone lines.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, that's what we told them.
Yes,
We told
to
them
call us.
We told anyone along that line, if you get the slightest odor, call us immediately.
And is there a 24-hour line?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know what that number is, so you can repeat it for the viewing audience?
No, but it is on the town's website.
Yeah.
Because it is a Google,
We've given it
Mail.
to the, now this just occurs, it's a very small area. It occurs only from where you have a gravity feed portion. That is from about where the Gulf gas station is, down to the Manchester line. So it's that area. And so, Prices, the vets, and Sinnet, those areas are the ones that, in the past, if it sensed it, they would sense it. And Larry Pianos, and they all have the contact numbers, because we basically told them, if you get it, call immediately. So. I'm going to, we did properties and facilities. I don't have anything on revenue sources.
the only thing that I did want to bring back to the board was last month you received a check from the fire department for the sale
All right.
of the unneeded compressor that they had replaced. And that was just over $500, and I know now they have done some hose testing and have actually, at your next month's meeting, I think we'll have a check for some of the hose that they have sold. And one of the thoughts was that next year, the fire department is celebrating a large anniversary and is seeking potentially some town support. So the question that came up was whether or not these funds, if the board would adopt putting these funds into the founders fund, the separate fund that we use for the Heritage Farm Weekend and other type activities, when we've celebrated Town Hall, when we've done those things, to be used directly for the fire department's celebration next year.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Would someone move to do that?
We put the $500 into the fire department fund.
That's a,
Founders Fund.
it's the Founders Fund, to be utilized towards these, it's the 75th fire department's anniversary.
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And obviously no opposition. Go on to clean energy. Remember, I did mention that we did receive a clean energy award from both Eversource and Energy Connecticut. And this will be hung proudly in the town. It's actually a very nice, solid plaque that we received.
Natural
And-
materials.
Yeah, it's real stuff. And I'll pass it down for the other board members to see, but it's in is for our efforts in our moving forward in our energy program. And we, along with a number of towns, received that. And we also recognize that we have that a little over $5,000 in credits that we've acquired, and that's climbing as more individuals, and there's been a pretty good rush on more solar panels going in, that actually increases. All right. Economic development.
Before you go
Oh, I'm sorry, yep.
Clean energy communities, what's happening with the energy committee? I was reading their minutes on the website. I noticed they met in July and elected a chairman, and then we're going to meet in September or October, and nothing happened.
They scheduled an October meeting, and before the meeting occurred, people had gotten back and said they couldn't be there, so they canceled. And that's, now that, the election is done, I know that doesn't impact them, but I think people are tied up in other
Sure.
things. I will get back with the chair to try to schedule another meeting.
Okay, I was just curious whether the
Yep.
JD Solar program that's happening at the high school next week was sponsored by the Energy Commission, or if that was
It-
independent.
It was not actually at all, and until either Friday or Monday, I'm sorry, I can't remember which day, I didn't even know anything about it. So I had asked them to send me some information, and we're going to be putting that in an e-bulletin and up on our website if it's not up there already. One of the things that we're participating in is this contest, and from the town's perspective, basically, our commitment is when somebody comes in with an application for solar, we are seeking to move it through the process as quickly as possible, hopefully within building department approval within 7 days. And that's the level of our commitment. And those are fairly easy with the company we're working with. The forms, they know exactly what we want. It doesn't take long.
Any other comments under that item? Item C, item B, economic development. You may or may not have seen, but they've actually begun soil testing over at the drive-in theater site. So that process is finally moving. And this afternoon, I got a call from the folks with the property on Route by Bolton Lake on 44, that commercial piece, right by the lake.
Across from the lake house.
Well, no, it's the next one up. It's up on the left, just past North Road.
Okay.
It's all brushed in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
With that invasive is growing in it.
Yep, right,
Yeah.
that piece, and they're coming in here on Tuesday to meet with Patrice, just to get some preliminary thoughts going, so.
What do you think about assigning or having one of us volunteer to be a shepherd to the drive-in owner and also this owner of this piece?
No, is it?
To really just help them, handhold them all the way through this process so that they feel welcome and that they feel that somebody is really paying attention to the details of their application and that they don't feel like they're hitting, or if they do hit obstacles, to have somebody
Right.
to help them over.
Well, one, that's why we bring him into Patrice as our town representative to do that. I've acted in that position on both these parcels since I've worked, quite frankly, with both owners before. But as things progress, I think it's a good idea. I think for the next board to sit down and talk that out. But that's where we are right now, just to keep everybody updated. Item 8C, which is Plan of Conservation and Development, and that has been adopted by Planning and Zoning and will go into effect on, actually, Thanksgiving Day. I want to give, I think we all Planning and Zoning kudos for a job well done. That's an excellent document. A lot of time, a lot of work was put in. I think they did a great job, and I also think Patrice Carson also was a excellent driving force in moving that process along. So I think the board agree that Planning and Zoning deserves congratulations for a job well done.
And with that, just next week, my town administrator's report is actually Patrice talking about the plan of conservation and development.
All right, and one last item, I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude to the Bolton Center School for the great job they did today, for the program they did for our Bolton veterans. It was a great program. The kids did a fantastic job, so to Mary Grandy and her staff over there, thank you very much. And it was extremely well attended by our veterans today, and Bob was there, and I can't compliment them enough for what they did, and as a vet, I have to tell you, it is very much appreciated. And with that, on behalf of the entire board, I'd like to just thank our Bolton vets and also those Bolton residents who are now serving for their service and all they have done for this country, and that this board and this community truly appreciates what you've done and what you continue to do. I know there are times when it appears that people have forgotten and don't care, but be assured that this community has not forgotten, and this community supports you and will always support you. And that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Okay, first I have just included, last time you got a copy of the letter from CROG to DOT for the revisions to the I-384 terminus with Route 6 and 44. I just included that the town of Coventry Town Council had also sent a letter in support of moving forward with something for that intersection. CROG to date has not had any response back yet from DOT. They are working through the Transportation Committee with DOT, and we'll be checking back with them in the very near process. They want to give them a little bit of time to digest everything. And with the budget discussions and budget cuts, they didn't want to push it before some of that information came out, because certainly transportation was one of the items being discussed as possibly being cut back. If you remember, the governor had put a tremendous amount of funds into transportation programs.
Joyce, you might want to point out to our friends in Coventry that this is the Route 6 Hop River, not the Route 6 Hope River.
Some people think Hope is the correct name. Remember Hans DePold?
Oh, that's right.
Yes, so, I mean, maybe this person is a Hans DePold supporter.
Maybe he provided the information to her.
There you go.
Yeah, it could be.
Second is the expressway properties, and I had given you information on those, not seeking any action on it, just wanted to bring you up to date. If you remember, there was the long corridor that they're looking to give back to us as open space, but at the end of, well, it's not at the very end, but that's where it does wind up at Notch Road and Notch Road Extension. They were going to cut a new road through there, and it is those properties that they are primarily concerned about. There are 4 parcels that were impacted. 2 are owned by the same people on one side, 2 by the same people on the other side, that they created some landlocked parcels. And that is the concern from DOT, is about leaving those as landlocked parcels. So they're willing to come back to the town with options of building a road ourselves. If you're not familiar with this, it goes currently goes up about 50 feet. There is a current driveway there, and then it drops down well over 100 feet. But there is quite a bit of terrain there. So building a road and giving frontage to these properties is something for discussion, but probably not practical for Bolton. It doesn't really do anything for us. Not to build a road and potentially grant driveway access to the existing roads over the right-of-way. Not build a road and abandon the property for highway purposes, which then can then be split between the properties. Some type of a trail, but would still need to address the landlocked parcels to protect the town now from being potentially liable for creating landlocked parcels. And the item that came up from the Trails Group was to create a parking area for trails at the end of Notch Road Extension, because that is right where the greenway cuts across.
I'd just like to add that that area that Joyce just mentioned is used by residents already to get from the end of Notch Road Extension onto the trail. So it would be really nice to just have a little bit bigger area and a little bit smoother way to get down there. If you've been down there, it kind of winds around, and you can do it. I've done it on a bicycle. It's doable, but it's kind of rough. So
And
it's,
I'm
I'm done.
And it would create, otherwise people go, in that area, would go to the other side of 384 or the terminus, and this would give them something on this side to park and be able to access the trail.
Yeah, so what if I may, what we actually, we looked at is, because these parcels were taken, it was taken years ago, decades ago, as part of the extension of I-384, all the way to Columbia in Willimantic. Obviously, that's gone, and so you have this strip, and you have two property owners, which good chunks of their property were divided, were simply divided, split out, that by, say, abandoning that road and still maintaining a small portion of the spot that Joyce and Gwen talked about, it would make those parcels whole again for those folks. And I think those are the issues we're looking at. But no decision has been made or even proposed at this stage of the game. So there's a lot there. Okay.
Connecticut Resources Recovery Authority, they had been involved for years in a lawsuit that now actually Connecticut CRA no longer is in existence. It's now MIRA, the Materials Innovation and Recycling Authority, but they had been in a lawsuit for years with the Metropolitan District. You remember, we had taken our items to CRA for years, and that ended 3 years ago, I believe.
Yeah, 3.5 years ago, yeah.
But this lawsuit was already going on during that period of time. So there was fear that if they had lost that lawsuit to the extent possible, they would be coming back on all of those CRA towns that were part of it at the time, which would have meant the town of Bolton as well. Based on the letter that I put in, they feel that they have sufficient funding set aside that they will not have to come back onto the towns based on the decision at the courts. So that is very positive news. Mike and I were talking the other day about past experiences and work where the town had to incur debt for the closing.
15 years we paid for it, I think.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this seemed to be almost potentially a similar situation. Even though we would not be using it, we would be paying for it. So that is good news to us for the future. The Purchasing Council annual meeting was just held last week. I bring this up because the primary purpose of this, the sharing session this time, was all about the set-aside for small minority businesses. And it is any project, public works project, that is $50,000 or greater in state funds, requires this 25% set aside. And it was they're still changing things. This law just went into effect October 1st. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of open issues that need clarity. For us, we don't have anything yet going out on the market, which we're fortunate because hopefully they'll have some of these items clarified before we need to. But there's things that have to be put in your invitation to bid, in your bid specs. You have to get permission from CHRO before you can award contracts. There's different thresholds for different things that have to be done. And one of the first things I want to talk to is our EDC about any town businesses that might be supplying this type of services, because we do have some construction type companies that do public work, and to try to work with them to make sure that they are registered with DAS, that they're registered with CHRO, et cetera, so that we don't necessarily hurt our own businesses from participating in some of these items.
I think one of the concerns on this, in the past, the threshold was much higher. At $50,000 to $60,000, you're dealing with very small companies. For them to comply with this, it's extremely difficult. They literally have to go out and subcontract a portion of their job just to meet that criteria, and that simply means it's going to cost more, and period. That's the unfortunate thing. Sorry.
No, that's very true, and you know, some companies may already be registered on some of this, but I'm afraid that there's a lot of them out there. For us, the first thing that we will hit probably is road resurfacing, because we go off of the state bid, we're already covered.
Yep.
But if we went out on our own to bid, because we use town aid road monies to help do part of that road resurfacing, anything that we use that for that hits that $50,000 threshold will now have to comply. CROG Municipal Services More Commission projects. There are 2 projects that we are going to put in that we are interested in participating in: the electronic document management demonstration project and the human resources portal project. And these are very similar to what we did with the online permitting, in being involved, basically CROG through the grant process and through CCM. The costs are basically picked up in the first couple of years, and you wind up receiving a huge benefit for the town with little expenditure of town funds, but just some staff time.
Is it participating municipalities, is this a lottery, or is this, if you sign up for it, you're in?
No, it is actually, CCM and CROG will decide the towns that participate. We always are rather fortunate because we can argue you need to use a town under 5,000, and they usually don't have many towns under 5,000 that put in for it. And we try to say our needs as a small town are much different than a town of 30,000 or a town of 40,000 or larger.
Yeah, particularly in CROG, there's not many in our size. Our competition is limited.
Last, just to bring you up to date on a couple of items, we did have concern raised about streetlights, and this actually ties in very well. Want to talk to certainly the Energy Committee, but actually, there is a process in place now and some vendors out there that would help us with the process. And an item for consideration with the new board is purchasing our streetlights. And
Rather than leasing.
rather than basically paying out the funds to Eversource for them. And we would need to get some payback information and some more information. There's a few towns that have started that process, and that is something that I would like this group to look into as to a possibility. Then you have control over, is it the most up-to-date energy efficient or not as well? So in the long run, those cost savings can definitely pay for that investment. Second, just want to make you aware, Dick Richard had also back, I can't tell you which month,
January or February.
It was this winter.
over the winter months, had talked about clearing around Town Hall. If you looked, we've started to do some of the rough stuff, but now they're really going in within the next week or two to really start the clearing. But they went in with the brush hog first
Good.
to start to do some of that.
And when I told you I thought we'd have it done by February, I didn't give you the year.
Bob, you're right. You got that legalism.
I mean, but we knew we were going to get it done.
Well, I'm pleased that you're committed to it. That's one of the reasons I'm here this evening.
Yep.
And I'm glad the job has started, and I think everybody in this room is going to enjoy the change that this cutting will bring about. It will serve the town. It'll be I think, the most improvement we can make for the least amount of money to enjoy a view across land that we own. This is going to be a great step forward.
And thanks for bringing it to our attention, too.
Well, thank you for getting to it.
Good.
And just
And when you come to our next meeting, you'll be able to walk out back and see it completed.
great.
And welcome back home.
Thank you.
Last, I just shared information with you on housing data profiles. This was actually distributed at a CROG Policy Board meeting, but get an opportunity to look through it. It has some fascinating information on Bolton in particular and lists the sources of the data. We will look to scan this and put this up on our website as well as info for the community.
Has some very interesting demographic
does.
information.
Yes,
Scary, but interesting.
Yeah. Joyce, I got a couple of questions for you.
yes.
In my spare time, now that I have some, I've been reading Economic Development Commission minutes. And it appears that the Economic Development Commission has been working with the Bolton Women's Club on some sort of a standardized sign project. Is anybody from the Selectman's office working with them on that?
They're not purchasing anything until they come back through us.
I get the
Yes.
impression from these minutes that they're pretty far along on this.
Okay. Because the Women's Club is basically doing the funding, and they're who have worked with me. So I will check into that.
Yeah, and then the other thing,
Check with the chair.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, please, because
Yeah.
I don't know as we want,
No. People going off on their
well,
own.
and since the Bolton Center study had some great suggestions on unified signs,
Right.
I would hope that in their deliberations, they're using that information.
That should be our standard.
I don't know if they,
I-
these
I
are.
can't tell from their minutes.
These are the Welcome to Bolton type signs, and I honestly, I don't know if they look back prior to you being on the board. Kathy Teller had brought this forward back many, many years ago and had come up with a couple of possibles, and I don't know if that's what they're working off of. So
I don't know what they're working on, but
I
my
will-
sense is that they're very close to something,
I will,
and
I'll check
I would
into
feel
that.
absolutely terrible if they spent 6 months working on something,
Say
Yeah.
no.
and they showed up here and we went, yuck.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And then the other thing, I was just wondering how we were progressing on the cistern work, because I know nothing's happened in the last 4 weeks.
You want to,
Yeah, well, they went, our highway superintendent went out with fire marshal, looked at the two sites, and we had to modify what we originally wanted to do because of depth and whatever, which means we're gonna have to, on the, let's see, School Road, just bring it out a little further so that you're below the frost line.
Yeah.
And over on Johnson Road, there's, one of the issues was, because of so much ledge, you're not gonna be able to dig it back too far, so it might freeze up, but we said, listen, if you can use it 11 months out of the year, it's better than no month,
Months,
and go ahead.
exactly.
So that was the discussion last week with the fire marshal and our superintendent, and we said, we're gonna go ahead with them, with these two modifications. That's
And what
where they
about
are.
Loomis Road?
and we're also, on School Road, we're also looking at, does it make any sense to actually, we weren't going to dig there at all, but does it make sense to go down a foot or two to create that same level?
Yeah.
Even if we had to mound it a foot rather than running, so many feet of pipe?
Sure.
So that's part of the discussion with our engineer now, based on what they found a week ago. Loomis Road, while we've gotten the verbal okay, he has not signed yet.
So I'll get on Larry's case and sign for it, so we can go ahead and
Yes,
get
so
started
that
on
we
that.
can move forward on that.
And what about the one here? for
Well,
the
we have,
summertime?
since no decision's been made here, we're not, obviously, we're not.
So we're
putting
going
anything
to,
in.
we're going to get back together and talk about the location of this one?
Well, this one, we have a
Right.
lot to decide on this one, yeah.
Yes.
All right, Joyce, I also have a question for you. What is the status of the USTA grant application for the tennis court renovation?
We don't have anything back.
When did you talk to them last?
I would have to
Well, I
look
mean,
back to
if you would
find
ask that question earlier, we'd be more than happy to provide that information earlier, rather than at the end of the meeting. I think it's
There's no,
just,
I don't know where to put it. I
well, I
don't know
mean,
where to ask it.
well,
under
easy.
the agenda.
You get up, pick up the phone, call Joyce and ask her. It's very simple, rather than at a meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.